Hi, I'm Sean. Thanks for checking out my new project, New Dice. What is this? Well, that's what this episode is about, the opening episode of this channel. It's not going to be what this is like moving forward, but I thought before we get into what I want this channel to be and what I'm hoping future episodes are, let's find out why we're here, why I'm here, and what you can expect from this channel moving forward. So I'm Sean. I'm an old man who is fairly new to the table RPG world. And it's kind of a convoluted way. We'll get into why I feel like I'm not new, but also am new. That will come up on today's little intro. But what is this channel going to be? What do I want New Dice to be? Well, I am somebody who for a very long time, in fact, since 2005, I have had a podcast that I've done that has been for me. I have used it as a journal of my life that I can look back on at some point and listen to old episodes and remember what happened throughout my life from my early 20s now into my early 40s and moving forward. This is not that. I want this to be something that is more of a community-driven event, more of a community-driven project. This is something that I am feeling fairly passionate about right now because I consume a lot of TTRPG, Dungeons and Dragons, Traveler as of recently, Shadow Dark, Daggerheart, all of them, you know the names of them. I consume a lot of content on YouTube, and I thought, I think it's time to give back. I really enjoy what I've learned and taken away from the community on YouTube, and I wanted to offer some more to it. I know it's a world that's cluttered, filled with all sorts of videos and content. I'm here to add more to the clutter. So my thing would be with this channel, I want to be able to help people who are GMs maybe come up with ideas, come up with things they hadn't thought of from somebody with a different perspective like me who may be kind of newer to this. Help players out, players who are newer to the game or players who have been there for a long time and maybe just need a little kick in the rear of, oh yeah, this is why I do this. This is something that I'm passionate about, even though I've done it for a long time. I just kind of maybe be a reset to get them excited to play in games. And then, of course, I want this to be something that is a channel that feeds to people who, like me for a long time, maybe were interested in the hobby and didn't quite get into it and didn't take the steps needed to fully commit to giving it a try. And I want this to maybe be that kick to the pants that gets people into playing a TTRPG and just help people along in that part of their journey. So that's what this channel is going to be moving forward. Ideally, there are going to be episodes that have things I've taken away from the games that I'm in, some ideas that I've thought of while playing, and also the very, very limited, like 2 or 3 sessions, 4 sessions that I've GM'd, things that I've taken away from there, and maybe ideas thrown your way that you can take or leave, or go in the comments and yell at me like, that's a terrible idea. You need to stop doing that. And here's what you need to do to fix it as we kind of build the community around this. And that's what I want this channel to be. And I want it to be productive. And main thing I want this channel to stay positive. I know that in the world and in this community, there are a lot of things that happen that bring negatives, and people don't like change, and people have been doing this hobby for 40 years religiously. And so as things start to evolve, it's tricky. And there are great channels out there that cover some of the things that are going wrong in the TTRPG world. And they cover that. That's not the stuff I want to bring to the table here. I'm not saying that stuff is wrong, but here I want to keep it positive. I want this to be a place that when you come in and when you leave, you're excited as a whole about the TTRPG community and whatever game it is you are playing. So who am I? Well, I'm Sean, and why I say this is new, why this is New Dice and why I'm new to this hobby, it's sort of an interesting, well, maybe not interesting, but a unique story for me, because I would consider myself new to the TTRPG world, but that is immediately countered by the fact that I got my very first TTRPG book, my very first role-playing book in 1996, Christmas of 1996. I had been going Christmas shopping with my grandmother and my mom, and I loved bookstores. I loved going to bookstores. I loved looking at the comic books. Foxtrot, Far Side. I would go and I'd look at Calvin and Hobbes. I'd look at these comic books while my mom and my grandmother would shop around. And I loved it. Well, next to those books were role-playing game books. And one of them that caught my eyes as a young Star Wars fan was West End Games' Star Wars role-playing game. And this book I found, and I Loved it. And I didn't quite understand what it was, but I knew that this was cool. I'm somebody who loved board games growing up. I loved card games. And I thought, well, this is two things I love, games and Star Wars. And not knowing what it was or how it worked or anything, it was what I asked for Christmas. And my grandma bought me the Star Wars West End Games book for Christmas. And for the next many years, I would pull that book off of a shelf in my room and I would thumb through it and I would read it. And I didn't understand what role-playing games were at the time. I actually did not live in the United States. I lived in Venezuela, and I don't know if they had a RPG community down there, but it was not a thing there in my world. So I had this magical book that I didn't know how to utilize, but I thought this would be cool. If I had buddies that I could convince to try this with me, I would do it, and I think we'd have fun. But I didn't understand how it worked. I'll be honest, at that time, it was a world where it seemed weird. I'm going to make believe these characters. I'm going to sit at a table and make believe with my friends. I don't do that. We play board games with rules. We play Monopoly. We play Risk. I play a lot of basketball. There's rules. There's structure. There's no imagining. That's for children. And so I never did it because I was kind of worried about it. So I moved back to the United States after I graduate high school down in Venezuela, and I start to figure out, oh, Dungeons and Dragons. What is this? This is really cool. But again, I was in a world, and it's not great, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who are in this world still, where it was frowned upon. Is that fair? Absolutely not. I'm thankful that currently, when I'm recording this in 2025, those worlds have meshed, and the world I came from of sports and the jocks and stuff, they now play TTRPGs, and it's not something that's like the nerds only play it and we can't be a nerd. Those waters are joining together, and it's not two separate oil and water sort of things. And I really love that about what's happening in those two communities. But that's not what I grew up in. And so I would, from a distance, try to be interested in what is Dungeons and Dragons? What is this community? And I slowly learned about it. And then I will tell you, in 2009, I was thumbing through podcasts, just swiping through podcasts on my phone, and I found some gaming ones. And one of them that I found was Major Spoilers, a website, Major Spoilers, Critical Hit. And they had just started doing this, and they were playing 4th edition D&D. And they were just recording sessions of them playing the game. And I thought, well, this is really cool. I liked growing up listening to the radio and hearing stories on the radio. And this was stories on the radio, except they weren't just a story that had been already created and read. These were being made live while I was listening to them. They were being created on a whim and just through these people's imagination, and things were changing and things could go one way or the other, and they didn't know. And so they were reacting to how a battle goes, how an encounter goes. And I was locked in. And it really started my journey into this world. And so in the early 2010s, I bought the 4th edition books. I bought the 4th edition starter set. But still, I had all this stuff and no one to play with. And I didn't know where to get into games. Until finally, in 2019, this many years of just listening to the Adventure Zone, eventually getting into Critical Role, and finding a bunch of YouTube channels that covered role-playing games. And I just was captivated by them. 2019, I found my local game shop in Spokane, Washington, where I lived at the time. Merlin's. Shout out to Merlin's and John down there. They ran something called Adventurers League. And for me, as a sports guy, this was pickup basketball, but with tabletop role-playing games. Adventurers League. It happened Sundays at noon and went from noon to 4. And you could show up and you could just jump into a game. These were not ongoing campaigns. These were not set tables where the same people were playing every week. This was show up, get to a table. There was different GMs that ran games every week, and they ran one-shots every Sunday. Again, it was like pickup basketball to me. You showed up, you brought your dice, you brought your pen and paper, your character sheet, and you played a game. And I was hooked. And I did that religiously until my family moved from Spokane. And when we moved to Kentucky. And one of the two things I did when I got here, I wanted to find a place to play basketball, and I wanted to find a place to continue to play Dungeons and Dragons because it was so enjoyable and bringing me so much joy. So I went to meetup.com. I found a group of people that were playing a game, and I asked them if I could sit in. They let me sit in. They eventually invited me to the group. And for the last 2 years, I have been playing every Tuesday night with this group, learning a lot about the hobby and getting to experience this world that I wish I had started, just jumped full-fledged into in 1996. But it took me 20 years, 15 years to really get into it. And now I'm very thankful for it. And I'm excited to do this, build this channel and share some of those experiences with you. So thanks for listening, and thanks for being here, and thanks for being part of this community. Hopefully we have a lot of fun. Hopefully this grows into something that you like, that I like, and we can keep this going and learn together, play games together, and fall in love with role-playing games. I'll tell you right now, yeah, I just got a lot planned for the channel. There's a lot more to my story that I was going to share there that I didn't, because I don't want to make these videos too long. I will say one of the things that I've got to do is I've got to play Dungeons and Dragons with this group. I've got to do Adventurers League. I tried to run a Dungeons and Dragons campaign in my little tiny bit of game mastering for my brother. We did that, just the two of us. Very tricky to do. I was not good at it. He put up with me. But I did that, and then I've been able to now play the game Traveler. It was another game that I played. I've got a group. We're playing Traveler once a month, and that's been very enjoyable. So that's kind of where I'm at in my history of playing these RPGs. Thank you so much for listening. What do they say? Subscribe, like, leave a comment, all of those things. Thanks for being here, and I hope you can enjoy this channel along with me.